Phionah Kyokusiima, welcome to Troublemakers, the podcast.
Thank you.
It's great to have you.
I like making the trouble. I love the beautiful trouble.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about cultural disobedience, which is one of the most beautiful forms of beautiful trouble, right? Share with us something about cultural disobedience.
Yeah, thank you. I come from a very interesting background when it comes to culture. I'm Ugandan, and Uganda is very rich when it comes to cultures and the different things around our cultures that we should obey, and the taboos, the do's and the don'ts, and it is usually kind of like trying to insert morals in people, in how we are growing up and in how we are supposed to behave. But as the world keeps on evolving, you keep wondering if some of these were really about morality, or it was about holding something back and deterring someone from maybe some freedom. And you want to break the law. You want to know. You're so curious and you want to know more about that. I come from the Banyankore culture, if I could say. And Banyankore are very interesting, very humble. That is the ideal. You're supposed to be humble. You're supposed to be harmonious. You're supposed to be respectful. And then there comes the issue of patriarchy, about certain things that men should be and women should be. And some of the things that we're always looking at include how we behave and the practices and the activities that we participate in. Talk about what girls should do and what girls shouldn't do, what women should do, what they shouldn't do, and what men should do. And it always inculcated a culture where men are supported or grow up becoming leaders, and then women are supposed to be like in the background watching and doing some home chores. It brings up a culture of where men grow up to be leaders, to shine, to talk, and then there is a way they are shunning the women not to say anything. It even, I think, has an issue on self-esteem, because you are a woman. I'm not even supposed to appear in a certain space. There is one thing, let's say, like if I meet a man or if I'm greeting someone, I'm supposed to kneel. It is not so much so pushy when it comes to our culture, like in Uganda, where someone has to kneel, whether it is in the mud, where it is in the rain, wherever you meet, a woman has to kneel. It is there in our culture also to talk about and bring about the issue of respect, but it is not so much like when it comes to the Uganda culture. But there are other things. I was talking about being humble, being harmonious, being respectful. A woman is supposed to be a certain thing. I don't know how I should call it and describe it. I'm not finding the word. Maybe it will come up later. So you find that women are supposed to, you cannot ride a bicycle, and then they would even go ahead to cover it up with the issue of virginity. So someone is deterred from practicing something which doesn't even have any harm, just because I also have to preserve my virginity.
What is the relationship with that? Like, what is the patriarchy trying to explain? What's the connection between virginity and riding a bicycle?
They would bring it up in a way that you're supposed to, when you open and you're riding, you're opening your legs and doing the riding. It has something to do with the effect of virginity. But if you go ahead to understand it, you realize that is something very different. But there is a way it was instilling so much fear on when it comes to riding a bicycle, such that someone who feels and is so much respecting on the issue of having my virginity protected, I shouldn't even practice that. And it would go even more beyond riding a bicycle, like when you say you're supposed to climb a tree. Someone says you cannot climb a tree. Still, it is the same issue of what if your virginity breaks when you're climbing a tree? And because you have to open your legs, you're climbing, there is a lot of some exercises that they're trying to, I don't know how I should call it, they try to open your body, break your body, like when you're in the gym and you're trying to exercise, and some of those exercises could be the thing that would end up making you like break your virginity, and you don't want to break virginity, because it was also another way of preserving women, I think, when it comes to the issues of sexual practices, until someone gets the right person for marriage. if I would bring it up like that. And it goes beyond that, and there were others, even when it came to foods. We grew up in a society where women would not eat chicken. There is even a part of a chicken, even when we started eating chicken, there is a certain particular part of a chicken, I think the gizzard, that a woman is not supposed to eat. And they say it is for someone, the head of the family, who is a man. Then we have a season.
Before you go there, hold that thought. Because it's funny, when you started talking about these like kind of gender taboos, one of the first things that came to my mind was actually the gizzard. I think that concept has spread around. There was this kind of like advisor from an organization called Chemchemi ya Ukweli in Kenya. And I think before you and I started organizing together, some years before that, I think back in 2011, maybe 2012, he came up to visit the people in Amuru, some of those organizers who have been busy there for a long time. And he was actually with a group of young men, very good organizers. And he was trying to explain this concept of patriarchy to them. And he used that example of the gizzard. He said, in my society, like, it's only the men who eat this gizzard. But do you think that's like natural? Is that like natural law? Like men just knew from their birth that we're going to eat the gizzard and they're not. He's like, no, some men sat down together and they were like, guys, this thing tastes really nice. Let's make sure that only we can eat it, you know? So he was trying to explain to them that these are not natural things. They don't exist naturally. Rather, there's like a syndicate. There are people of certain power or privilege that get together and they write these laws, right? These are laws. They're not maybe in the Constitution of Uganda, but they're sort of in our cultural law, right? And this is the whole idea around cultural disobedience. Have you ever eaten a gizzard?
I do eat gizzards, and it is very interesting. Like, I find it so egocentric and selfish that at that point people would think of having the best for themselves, and then it would be taken up by women, and you find that even when he's not there, I cannot eat the gizzard. We even have to wait for the man in the house, maybe the child, the son, and then the women were not tasting.
He's out visiting some other friends or something, drinking at the bar, and you're just sitting there with that gizzard. It's hot, it's warm. Nobody's eating it.
Waiting for that. And I think it is very interesting that women could just believe and take it up until just recently. Again, I think in Amuru, Olango, where we had another training. During the training, it was only ladies. They come and we serve chicken. And it is interesting. I think people in the north, there is a way they treat chicken because they tell you they don't eat the eggs. And there is a lot of those indigenous birds we would want to enjoy. But for them, they say they don't usually eat. So even when they slaughter, they don't want to eat. And we tell them, we intentionally had a break tea where we had only gizzards. That does the... Some does the snack for the tea.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
And the women were looking at us like, how? What? And then you ask them and you're like, what's wrong? They're like, you're not supposed to eat this. And I'm like, is it poisonous? No, culturally we are not supposed to. Why? It is supposed to be eaten by men. Really? Like.
So you were setting them up for that conversation.
Yes, and we had the conversation and they were like, you can eat. Maybe it was something, whatever it came, where it came from, like he's saying. Either, remember a chicken only has one gizzard. And maybe they were trying to, I don't know whoever started it was maybe trying to protect something which was like a single piece, not everybody fighting around it because it is very sweet.
So why didn't that principle of like the forbidden fruit apply? Like the forbidden fruit is the fruit that looks the most tasty, right? The thing you could never, and here's a chance, right? They're with you at your break tea, there's a whole buffet of gizzards, and they're still saying that no, that thing is for men, we're not going to touch it. So why is there that kind of power? And there were even maybe no men around to
Yeah, that
let's
is the
say,
thing.
prevent them from.
I think that's where we look at the issue of how people adapt some of these things when they are instilled in us, that you grow up with fear, or you end up losing interest, or you even don't know, you take it for granted the way it is. Because there isn't anything, as I don't know why we obey. And that is one of the things I think when we are trying to talk about this culture breaking taboos we are trying to bring out, that people are not even supposed to obey certain things. Maybe they are supposed to question, maybe they are supposed to understand where it is coming from, and why do we have to keep on instilling it among people, or even in people, or even in girls? If it was an issue of that it was always one piece, and we never wanted the children to argue, maybe also fight over the same piece with the father. But what happens when the father is not there, but it doesn't appear so abstract, and someone is like, I can't do this, as if there's something dangerous? That is, I think it takes us to the same discussion we are having, that people should not obey. Why do we obey? In most cases, some of these laws, because you understand these laws were made by men. These norms were made by men. When I'm talking about men, I'm not talking about the he or she, I'm talking about the people. So it should be, again, the same people to question, to understand, to find what is good in them and what is not good in them, but not to limit and deter people from the freedom, the enjoyment of some of these things.
Right. So if civil disobedience is the deliberate violation of unjust laws, then in a similar spirit, cultural disobedience bravely subverts unjust cultural norms. I remember as you were writing some of these ideas for Beautiful Trouble, you were remembering the times of the International Women's Day when you joined Solidarity Uganda. You were just a few days old in this community organizing network, and one of your first ambitious kind of activities that you mobilized was, tell us about it, the competitions that you organized on International Women's Day. Which year was that?
It was 2018.
Yeah.
And it was International Women's Day on 8th of March. And I think I just joined like a few weeks in February. And we're looking in Women's Day. Women's Day is about, it's been like an empowerment movement around the world, trying to break patriarchy, trying to hear the voices of women, and trying to include them in so many different spaces, development, economic, leadership, and politics. And at that point, I was like, what else can we do as women, especially when it comes to the region where I was, in Ankole, that is Bushenyi, Western Uganda. And I thought of having that competition where women would do all the things that they're not supposed to do. And it came out like fun. It was supposed to be like fun, but the thing was people were breaking the different taboos. There's so many taboos in the Angoli culture. You cannot climb a tree. You cannot ride a bicycle. You cannot. So the other question about riding a bicycle, if it was the issue of virginity, I no longer have the virginity. Am I able to?
Can I ride a bike now?
Can I ride a bicycle now? Can I climb a tree now? And then someone again is telling you, no, you have grown up, you have children, you're supposed to be a mother, you're not still supposed to do all the things. So it was coming out from, you cannot...
So do they expect you, to walk to get the water instead of riding a bicycle?
Yes. That's why it becomes so bad and it becomes so exploitative, where I'm supposed to do the hard work, to go to a stream, fetch water in a jerrycan, and it's heavy. But there is a bicycle at home that I cannot even push to help me, support me, get all that. And then the part of whistling, you want to ask, what happens when I whistle? I hear it is immoral. It doesn't come out well when it comes from a woman. And what do you mean it doesn't come out well? So it was all about that. And I had a group of women. Resistance is also fun when it comes from activities that are usually like fun and interesting. And then there's this part of curiosity of what will happen at the end of the day. So we had competitions in whistling, in ladies who would climb the tallest trees at Rukarare. Rukarare is a workshop area where so many things happen, and they've been so good when it comes to environment. So there is that ambience, the trees, the space where people can meet, people can chat, people can learn. And there's a lot of cultural things that happen around, especially when it comes to what women can do, especially like in crafts, and learning about protection of particular trees, which are medicinal. And you find women who usually go there to do that, but there are other things they cannot explore. So that was like, okay, you women, you always come here. What about when we have these competitions? We want to see which woman is going to whistle the longest. And it was fun. They were like, why these? We want to see someone who can climb the tallest tree. We want to see those ones who will win when it comes to riding bicycles. And they were asking how much distance can you take on like a ride on a bicycle? Which are those people? How many of us can even ride bicycles? There are those ones who were like scared. But then you realize there are a few who are there, but they are even letting the talent go away. They're not even enjoying it because of those taboos, because of being judged by the society that we live in. So we're able to have 30 participants who came, and it was fun. They had to ride, and they wanted, at a certain point, they said they should even take it outside the village in that small place, and they take it around town to have it come up. To invite, to inspire others.
To show people that we're doing this out in the open.
Yes, because there's nothing that can happen if women ride bicycles. And it didn't stop there. I think the practice, we eventually graduated to even different spaces away from Bushenyi. And I think women have used really that practice of riding bicycles to send out messages, to rally other women in big numbers, to bring out particular messages. Because we also had a bicycle caravan again later in Obrisa and Hoima, where women were sending out a message against land grabbing. And then recently we again had another one on the Independence Day in Chiliandongo. Again, it was women, and they were talking about what are we talking about when we say we are independent, and there are things that still limit us from participating in some of these spaces.
So is the idea like, because there's sort of the cultural disobedience is like an end in itself. It's like you've violated the rule, you've broken the rule, you've acted against the rule, and you've showed an alternative, that there can be a world where we allow ourselves to ride bicycles. But it sounds to me like you're also using this to advance other issues, right? Like, is it why do you do that? Is it like that people watching, like, it's so novel or so interesting to like see this unusual spectacle of like women on a bicycle, or like why use that when you're working on other issues?
The fact remains from the start, what we, movement building and resistance is a process. And looking at the background where I was coming from, like telling you about the different taboos and how they affect participation of women, especially in some of these spaces. So like for the first time, you're trying to ask them, what happens when you ride a bicycle? You're tickling their curiosity on why they are obeying a particular practice. And then after that, that is when we're riding on Women's Day, where we're asking them, they ride, they do it for fun, it was competitions, then they realize we can do it. And by the way, I'm not being shunned, that it is up to the community to appreciate or even join me. That was the start, breaking the taboos. People should be free. They are not doing something wrong. People should appreciate some of the talents they have. Some of these things people should be able to learn and understand that they are just there to limit them and stop them from enjoying or not even enjoying, but not specifically about morality or whatever they were set up for. Then apart from that, as we move on, you realize I could use the same thing to mobilize, to recruit people. Then when you're recruiting people now in this group of riding bicycles, what is more about bicycles? Because we realize that when we talk about the taboos, those taboos are limiting us in participation in so many spaces. Because it is not only about don't ride a bicycle. It even goes beyond women cannot be leaders. Because we are looking at the fact and the background that men were nurtured to be leaders, to be in certain spaces, to be confident and speak, and that was not women. Women were always left behind to cook and serve the men. So how best can we even break that? Because it goes beyond just riding a bicycle, but even the bigger practices in society and how it evolves around politics. around leadership and what women can contribute when it comes to such spaces. And we are looking at the fact that women are good leaders. They have also the right to participate in those spaces. They can also speak for themselves. Then we also understand that women can speak for themselves. We even understand our problems much better than men. Or maybe we could even be better in certain spaces where men are and do more than what men can do. We have also seen that.
So share some concrete examples with in the piece at the Beautiful Trouble Toolbox. You write about the Rukarwe Women Writers Club, Rukarwe Women Writers Club, and tell us some of the outcomes apart from just breaking the taboo of riding bicycles. What have they achieved? What has happened with the members of that group?
The achievements, we can look at them like I was talking about the issue of their involvement, their motivation and participation in different spaces. Because women.
So what are some of those spaces?
Some of those spaces include people being able to contest in leadership positions. We have women councillors, and then we have even spaces where they are not supposed to come at just as on the post of women, they're also contesting with men. Then they have been able to get into spaces of leadership, let's say in schools, to advance issues of their children and how they are supposed to be taken care of when it comes in schools. You find women representatives on parent teachers associations, on school management teams, on boards, different boards, and even on the leadership of that Rukarwe organization I was telling you about. They also can be leaders in their own groups and make decisions of their own on how they would want to run their own affairs. All those things have come up. So we have women leaders at the moment from that same group as taking up issues on livelihood, forming more groups, and also helping and campaigning for other women participate in different spaces of leadership at a bigger level and not only a community level, and serving spaces where men have only been serving, let's say, councillors of a sub-county, someone representing a sub-county, and a woman is also there. And I don't have to come basically on a ticket of
a women's position.
We call it what? Women position and in Uganda, but I can also participate fully and participate with a lot of energy alongside a man and see where I can challenge them and also be part of that.
Has this group faced backlash from men in the community? Does it have support from men and their families or the community?
Of course, it is not that when I break a taboo, like I've said, they were usually issues of morality and controlling of a man. So there is always that fear among men in some groups and in some families where men still want to insist. And they feel like, when my woman gets into this group, she's going to be a bully. I will not be able to control my woman. And then the question is the issue about controlling or about how we live in our families together and what contribution I can offer? Yeah, so there were those challenges, and some are usually hard and head-on that some men will insist they are not able to take it up, or they would not agree with that. They expect their wives to be in a particular way or to behave in a particular way. And some groups have been able to also bring in their men to help them understand and appreciate that it's a contribution for everybody to live better, or for us to be better in our family, but not specifically to be disrespectful as a wife. Yeah. We have also seen where culture has been used, where it means where it is so totally different when it comes to resistance, like where we have like old women in like strip. To us in Uganda, it is something different. Because a certain group of people are not supposed to be showing their nakedness, and that is also culture. So meaning when someone does that in form of a resistance, when people are resisting or there is something going on, they are sending out a particular message. And we usually relate it to curses. So there is so much when it comes to curses, when it comes to culture and how it evolves around resistance and what contributions. And again, you see it again coming from women, that if my mother strips naked for me, then it is a curse. And we saw a group of women who did it, and unfortunately, something funny happened, and people do not want to take up that route of trying to understand and see the connection. But to us who still believe in culture, would want to say, like, maybe the results of this were from this curse, because you saw your mother's and your grandmother's nakedness. Mm-hmm. So there is a way culture keeps on evolving. It is good, but when it comes to limitations, there is this point where you need to be like, do I need to obey? Ask those questions, right. And do I need to break? Yeah. And what other messages can we rally around? Like I've told you in Brisa, we had like people have a bicycle caravan, but advancing issues of land justice in the area and how it was affecting them as women at that point. And the other day we were in Chiriandonga, and women were riding bicycles, talking about how does independence speak to us as women? Are we independent? And the issue again was on land injustice, because you realize there's a lot of patriarchy when it comes to land ownership in Uganda, where women till land and they are not.
They're the laborers, but not the owners.
That they are not the owners, and they are trying to push for that. Can't I also own land? If I'm tilling this land, can't I also? So, and we have different examples, where women have even come out, and now these days someone is like, I can also buy land and it is in my name. I don't have to put it under my husband's name. So those are some of the examples. And
I mean, so legally speaking, they don't have to, but this is part of the depth of analysis of this tactic of cultural disobedience, because you might have a community where that woman is still pressured to add her brother, her husband, or father on the land title. And then maybe a few generations later, somebody passes away. You start to get these kind of like internal conflicts, right? So, I mean, how do women see these things? What happens when they cross that threshold and say, no, this will be my land alone, nobody else on the title? Like, do you see like a change in their being, in their life, when they take that big step to, cross over and break the norm?
The feeling that I've seen her come out of some of these issues as achievements and results, you realize people have been in bondage. And someone is like, I'm free. And you're like, okay, so what was it all about? You realize someone comes from a background and the mind was she's stuck into praising someone, and she even didn't know how she could break free. But now she's free. She's free. I have my own land. I can do this. I can talk about this. I can move freely. So, and it has also helped so much when it comes to family conflicts. Yeah, that is the truth. We've had so many conflicts where most widows have been tortured by the families, because I can't own land. It was my husband's land, but then their brother now should take over even when the person is dead. And then the worst part is that your children even have to suffer at that point, because the other one doesn't have the same plans that you had with your own husband, and he's doing things. There is always that greed, different ideologies or different plans when it comes to that. And then the woman, how does she protect herself? And how does she even advance the priorities and the plans of the family now that the husband is not there, but she has her children? So there is that harmony that is coming with that. And then the freedom where people feel like they are no longer in bondage, and someone will be like, you see them growing and bringing up that part of, there is much I can do.
And does that freedom, I mean, ideally, let's say there's a man and a woman in a marriage together with maybe a few children, and the woman experiences that freedom. I think I've seen situations where her husband will take that as a big threat, but I've also seen situations where the husband is happy, like realizing like, okay, my this person that I care about is happier. Have you witnessed that in this kind of organizing?
Yes, it is so much there, and it is 50-50 because most of men are usually so scared of that freedom and that empowerment. That's when you realize, I didn't know why men can be so insecure. There is that insecurity that comes with my woman, she'll go away. And you realize it is also something to do with character, because I don't think someone was waiting for empowerment, because there are some things that could even have been happening way back that we didn't know and didn't need these things to limit others. And then there are those ones who are so free and was looking out maybe for help. Then he realizes he's on the same footing with the woman, and the woman has a lot of contribution that they can bring. And it is like one way of helping the family move ahead. So it is a 50-50 that we have those men who are still so patriarchal that there is a sense of insecurity that comes with seeing their women be free, grow economically, in leadership, in politics. And there are those ones who have taken it as an opportunity for them to work side by side with their women in advancing their priorities and plans for individual growth and maybe family growth.
Tell us about Okwevuga.
Okwevuga, I don't know how to bring it out very much in this space, but Okwevuga is Okwevuga, basically they are riddles. They are riddles, and if maybe I could call them like raps in the current world, but it is so natural and so organic for Banyankore, where someone is talking about, you're giving out information about something, about maybe your culture, about something you love. And we usually use it in spaces, for example, like, let's say maybe like on a traditional marriage ceremony, and you're talking about your ancestors and how you have evolved and how maybe you met the woman you're coming to get, and the good things around it of that makes you love that place, or maybe that woman, or even that community. And basically they are riddles speaking about that for entertainment, and also to keep our culture, and also remind us of the things that were happening. But they usually come out like in raps, because it is there is a way it comes out when, and like in form of an entertainment, but giving out and preserving information about our cultures and our communities, how we grew up. Because when you go to Angola, you're talking about hills and plains, you're talking about grazing cattle, and that one has to come. You're talking about our clans, our grandparents, and where they came from, and how we ended up settling where we are settling, and then the other activities that happen around the community, and then later how it brings in the part of love and what you'd want to do with your woman, like in appreciation. It's a form of like appreciation, gratitude, happiness, and also maybe something like enticing to like in courtship, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, like dating.
Yeah.
Trying to bring out the good, what you really appreciate about that person.
And this is something that men usually do.
Yeah. It again takes us back to the same conversation we are having earlier about the patriarchy of it, that it has always been done by men. It is something that was done only by men, and it is still done by men. However, a few of the ladies are trying to take it up, but just recently, to see how it works out. And I think they had never even taken interest, but it is something that would be done by men.
Mm. And have you heard any women deliver Okwevuga, like perform Okwevuga in a public situation?
Yeah, I think like once. Yeah. And
how was that received?
It was amazing, of course, to some people, and people are like, oh, so this one can also be done by women. And then the other thing is that these days we are working so much on preserving our cultures, so people do not mind who take it up. But it was so strange as to some people, because they are usually used to having men do it. But on another note is that people are working so hard to preserve some of these things, so we don't mind whether it is a lady or a man who's doing it at that point. But in some other groups, they're like, okay, even women can do this. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about cultural disobedience, Phionah?
Yeah, it is a very interesting space and dynamic ground for resistance, because it usually appears like less risky in most cases, and it is a great form of mobilization, especially for people who are timid and lack self-esteem. That is why it usually mostly work with women. It has worked with women, and it is a great form of mobilization if we talk about recruitment, but more so a space for learning, and it takes a step-by-step and slow process to help women understand and appreciate the biggest contribution they can give to the different spaces and diversity of the world, in economics, in leadership, in managing their homes, in the growth of in their individuality, and what gifts and talents they have.
Kyokusiima, do you perform okwevuga? Do you ride a bicycle? Do you climb trees? Do you whistle? Can you whistle for us?
This is very interesting because I can't whistle, and yet I grew up in a family where my dad was so free with us because he would let us go to graze cattle, and then the boys were always at home trying to take on the other chores. But for a bicycle, I can. But whistling, I think it was just I was just not talented for that, because when I try, I don't think I can.
I'm not very good at it.
Yeah.
I can't stay in key.
That
So thanks so much, Kyokusiima, for joining us. Our listeners, of course, weren't able to witness this past week or so when you've been advising and consulting all kinds of social movements across 3 continents on their various issues. But I admire you, my friend, as such a prolific and powerful force in the world. And I'm really grateful that you gave us your time to talk about this. And of course, we want to encourage listeners, as always, to check out the show notes and, click on the links that we'll have to some of the projects that you've been involved in, and then to learn more about cultural disobedience as well.
Thank you. It's really been a great space, because movements are usually evolving and learning continues. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. We're honored.
Hi! We hope you enjoyed the conversation on this episode of Troublemakers and feel inspired to stir up some good trouble in your own community. Do feel free to check out our other episodes and subscribe to Troublemakers Podcast in your preferred podcast app. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook as troublemakers.podcast for all the latest updates, behind-the-scenes content, and sneak peeks of what's coming next. We also love to hear from our listeners. You can email us via troublemakersthepodcast@gmail.com or simply drop a DM through our social media. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, take a moment and share it with a friend or leave us a review. It really helps us grow our community of troublemakers. Keep shaking things up.